नमस्कार। रसोई के रहस्य में आप सबका एक बार फिर से स्वागत है। फेस्टिवल्स ऑफ इंडिया जी हाँ अभी भी जारी है। वी हैव स्टिल अ फ्यू मंथ्स लेफ्ट ऑफ इंटेंस festival season in India. So we are going to keep on at it and keep bringing to you wonderful festivals. This year, I think there are so many festivals still left that we don't know when this is all really going to end. Hopefully never. Today, we are traveling down to Kerala. It's September. It's time for Kerala's most celebrated and most important festival, Onam. Now, today I'm not going to say anything about Onam because I don't know, apart from the fact that it has lots of wonderful things and lots of food. But my guest here is extremely special. She's taken Onam all the way to Seattle in the United States, where she comes from. And she's going to tell us all about it and what she does. So, welcoming Nisha Pillai on Rasoi ke Rahasya. Hi Nisha, welcome to Rasoi ke Rahasya. I'm so happy to finally have you on my show.
Oh, hi Payal, and it's such an honor to be on your show. And I am so happy that I got a chance to talk about how I celebrate Onam as an immigrant in the United States.
Yes, I know, because there's so much that you do. I remember our conversation about how whether you find flowers and you don't find flowers. If you don't find the right flowers, then you do jugaad.
Yes. As my circle knows me, I am the queen of jugaad. I try to make do.
So tell me, so we know something about Onam. I think most of us do. That for me, I hear about Lord Mahabali. Then I also hear the most striking feature that I remember about Onam is the fact that it is celebrated by every Malayali regardless of community. Is that so?
That is very true. Actually, you could say probably Kerala is one of my favorite places because of that one very special reason. See, we cannot kind of do it as just take any festival. In Kerala, Christmas, Easter, and Bakrid and Ramzan, everything is celebrated as a community. Even Onam, like you cannot have Onam without somebody like a Christian family bringing in their special Upperi or something like that. Like we used to have, it was for us in Kerala while growing up, it was like a community celebration. It was never a religious celebration. So I mean, even when we moved into Mumbai, we could see that everybody, all the Malayalis, if they spoke Malayalam, they would celebrate Onam. So it was definitely not a religious thing.
So true, and you have a Malayali. Every country will have a Malayali town.
That's right. We have this running joke in Kerala that so some American astronauts landed in moon, and then there was a Malayali asking, "Oh, Cheta, do you want some chaya?"
It's actually pretty much like that.
Yeah, there are I think very few places in the world where a Malayali hasn't reached.
Absolutely, and that's how I think thanks to so many people moving to so many places and communities and people integrating and mixing with each other and growing up with each other and things like that. All of us have some idea about the festival and how it happens and what happens. But the rest of it, we pretty much leave it to the experts.
Well, see, for while growing up, I grew up on a steady diet of mythological stuff because my grandmother raised me. So I know pretty much the mythological part of it, and then there are a lot of memories to it because every different place, like my paternal grandmother's house, it was celebrated slightly differently with the customs there, and at my maternal grandmother's house, it was slightly different. So I am a mixture of everything that I have been exposed to.
But that's the wonder of the whole thing. That's the beauty of the whole thing, and especially for us, that's even more special. So tell us, what is Onam? I mean, what is it? Tell us the mythology. I love mythology.
Okay, so as far as I have heard and learned from my grandmother, Onam has a lot of significance as Mahavishnu's avatar Vamana. Now, Vamana was this tiny, very short guy who kind of banished the demon king Mahabali. Now, Mahabali was not a bad guy. So, he was a very popular and a very beloved king who ruled over mankind. So they say in Kerala, he used to be the king, and his popularity got so much that people would take their troubles not to the gods, but to Mahabali. And that kind of got the Devas and the Indra a bit insecure. So apparently they went and complained to the gods. And so this is the part where I kind of get a little bit anxious about why would the gods agree to such a thing. But somehow Lord Vishnu took this avatara of Vamana and banished Mahabali to the underworld. But then Mahabali protested about how it was very unfair that despite doing such good karma, he was being banished to the underworld. And Vamana gave him 1 day for him to visit his beloved, the people he ruled over. So he said, okay, I'll give you this 1 day where you can come and see all your people, and the people can also see with you, meet with you and treat you and show how they miss you. And that is the day that we celebrate as Tiruvonam, the second day of Onam. So I come from a family of farmers. For us, it's also the festival of harvest. That is the time when everything was in plenty. It's right after summer when everything is harvested and there is everything. Everybody would have enough food to go around. And that is Onam to me. Now, as a child, for me, it was all goodies. Onam would be the one golden day of the year where you could get new clothes. Doesn't matter if you needed them or not. So as a child, it was the smell of those new clothes. And then of course there was the huge swing, the wooden swing that my uncles would hang from the tree that was in the front of our courtyard. And that was like, all those things are the greatest memories for me from my childhood. The other things, the kind of the rituals and the ceremonies that came with it, that came much later once I started growing up and I started looking around. Yeah.
3 days?
See, in Kerala, they would have 2 weeks of vacation. Just like northern part of India, we would have Diwali the same way. In Kerala, we would have like 2 weeks of Onam vacation. But Onam is celebrated like mainly on 4 days.
Oh,
it's day 1, day 2, day 3 and day 4. So day 1 would be a lot of the rituals and lots of things which I am not very knowledgeable about. And the second day would be the main day where you would have the feast and everything. And I think the third day would be when you would be inviting people to your home for the partaking the feast. And then the day 4 would be, I think, again the lesser significant days. The day 1 and day 4 nobody would remember, but day 2 and day 3, oh yeah, because day 2 would be a feast in our home, and day 3 would be where we would go to our other family members and other homes to be a part of their celebrations.
Correct. So beautiful, but it's also that sense of community, and I think the excitement of even, the festival actually coming up and things like that is so big.
That's true.
So what about the rituals? I mean, I know that there's a whole lot of stuff that happens, especially the flowers and things like that.
Yes. So one of the very fun parts of Onam is the equivalent of what Rangoli is to Diwali. So for Onam, we have this flower arrangement, and traditionally there are like certain flowers. There are like 10 different flowers or something like that, which you have to place it, and the center is always for God. You make those cones, and I think the cones were made from a mixture of mud and cow dung, because cow dung is supposed to be purifying. You kind of purify the area with cow dung, and then on that you would let it dry, and on top of that there would be this arrangement of flowers. And for kids it would be like, okay, whatever flowers you can get your hands on. The trading would be pretty ruthless, or they could put the stock market to shame. If somebody had a bunch of marigolds, they would be trading those for some other flowers. And oh, can I have some of those jasmines? I can give you 1 lotus. This would be the comment from one of the kids who had a pond in their backyard, who had access to lotuses and the water lilies. So all these would be going on. the adults would know nothing about all these dealings, but yeah, the kids would be going door to door trying to find the flowers that they don't have, and it was a pretty competitive thing for the kids. And then as I grew up, I noticed that for all these community associations, see, growing up in Mumbai, I've had access to all these the Bombay Malayali welfare associations and stuff like that. And my parents being members of such communities, we could see they had a much better, like a more, a professional approach to the flowers. So they would be putting, like, months before, they would be having orders on certain flowers, what they would be eating and things like that. And there would be photographs and there would be competitions. Oh my. And that's when kind of like opened up my mind to, oh my gosh, this is such a professional thing. And nothing like what the kids did, all the bartering around while we were youngsters.
And they placed in a circular arrangement. I think what I remember hearing from a friend was that it's circular arrangement of flowers on the floor, and every day you keep adding one circle. Is that it?
Yes, I think it is celebrated differently in a different part. I could see that on my dad's side of the family, a lot of their families took their designs pretty seriously. They would have all the traditional ones, and they would have like a different design for every day, I guess, because they would have like a very basic design on day one, and on day two it would be pretty grand and would be with more intricate. And if you kind of went to professional designers who would actually do it like as parts of clubs or other associations, they would have like themes worked in, just like how the current events, based on current events, or maybe
like that. Wow. And all with flowers?
Yeah, all with flowers. And it was, I could kind of like oh my gosh, I could describe, like, for example, one of the most striking designs I saw, it started in the center with a one of those brass traditional Kerala lamps in the center, and then with each circle outward, it showed the changing colors of this was like last year, and they had all this COVID, like there in the first circle there was like you could see there were like a pretty stark people wearing masks and everything. And then the second wall had tired doctors resting in corners and stuff, and all this with flowers. Sometimes these arrangements in the hands of a skilled like flower arranged like a designer, there would be like stories would be coming out of these arrangements. It's amazing. And I was like, okay, there are beautiful designs and like something that looks like a mehndi design or something in your hand, and then there are these designs which actually tell you stories and kind of bring awareness and kind of share the grief and lots of things. It's
take
amazing.
You back to the sense of community, right back to where you start, at the grassroots level, and where you want to celebrate and you want to be together.
That's right.
So beautiful. What next?
Yes, go ahead.
I said, what happens next?
I think still the community is brought together by the one thing, food.
Yes.
Onam is definitely a food-centric festival, and the preparations of Sadhya goes like a long way back. So, see, I'm a mom who's in a different country with no other Malayalis around who can show, come together in celebration. So, for me, the one way to teach my kids were like through food. So this is how, this was, I think, the perfect way to kind of introduce them, because food creates memories.
Absolutely.
So with Sadhya, of course, that's what happened with us too. And
total recall.
Yes. So growing up, we would be part of multiple Sadhyas through the Onam period. So I think for my household, the women usually are the ones who are cooking every day. So for them, Onam would be just there would be excitement about new clothes and family getting together and everything. But for them, it was more it's a little bit of extra work. So I would see them toiling in the kitchen all day and then serving everybody and then planning out the meals and sitting together. The only time I see them relaxing was during the prep work for Sadhya. And so let me tell you something about the Sadhya. So a properly made Sadhya usually follows a lot of Ayurvedic principles in its preparation. And Kerala is big about Ayurveda. I mean, you will find countless Ayurvedic hospitals in Kerala, and the Sadhya for Onam kind of are like pretty much based on some of the Ayurvedic principles. And so it's not, these principles are not followed only in the preparation of it, but also the serving and the enjoyment, So there is an order that needs to be followed while you are serving or preparing it.
Right.
So what I have been very much fascinated by all the arguments that I have, because you cannot try and talk to a Keralite saying that, oh, Sadhya is very unhealthy, it's carb loaded and stuff like that. No, because they will say, no, that is the healthiest thing that you get to enjoy. And they can give you so many reasons about why. But reading that made me curious, and reading into that, I kind of realized some of the parts are actually true, And so the main part of the Sadhya is the banana leaf. Now it has to be a fresh banana leaf, and the food has to be hot when you are serving it on a banana leaf. So the hot rice, when it mixes, like when it falls onto the banana leaf, it kind of partially cooks the banana leaf, and a lot of the good nutrients are passed on into the rice. So the aroma, and there is certain nutrients that get transferred. So the chemical reaction in it is supposed to be pretty healthy. So that's one thing I found out by just reading.
And it's so lovely also, the smell of a fresh banana from a washed banana leaf.
Oh my gosh. That's one of the best parts of the Sadhya.
Yeah.
And the serving is also like, there is a particular order. So when we were kids, my dad used to make us say the order aloud, so that when we would be cooking our own sadhyas, he wanted us to serve them in that order.
Amazing.
So it starts from when a person sits at the banana leaf, it starts from the left side of the person. Okay. And that is how the dishes go. So the extreme end is for the papad and the banana chips and the Sarkara varatti, the recipe that I'm going to be talking about later, and so on. And then comes the 4 pickles. The mango pickle, the ginger pickle, the lemon pickle. There is also kind of like a tender mango preparation that is served. So there are 4 types of pickles, and then starts all the dry sabzis, which is like a toran or a poriyal. And then there are usually, depending on the number of the dishes, some people like to make like a whole variety of preparations. So then they would have 2 or 3 torans. But usually for our home, we normally make 1 toran, and then there is like 2 yogurt based preparations, which is called a Pacchiri and a Khichdi. They both are basic yogurt based dishes with some simple vegetables, but one has mustard, the other one doesn't have mustard ground into the mixture, into the gravy. So that's the difference. So one is supposed to cool down the body, the other one is supposed to warm up the body, and the order in it which it is eaten kind of determines how it should go. And then comes the most famous dish of them all, that's the avial. Avial is a mixture of all the vegetables. Avial. And then I think there are like you can usually get now the dishes that follow avial are usually more, what can you say, local. So some part of Kerala will have like a olan or like a bean based preparation, bean and coconut milk, and other parts would have something else. So they kind of vary. Even in Sadhya, it's as there is still so much variety if you go to different parts of Kerala.
Right.
And one thing everybody would agree is the matta rice, the red rice that you put
I've eaten
on
some
it.
Of that. It's very nice.
It is delicious. It does take a long time to digest. That's why nap is recommended post the meal. But yes, and traditionally there are like 3 or 4 courses of accompaniments that go on top of the rice. So the beginning is always with a dal, which is made from moong, roasted moong, which is called paripal. And the second course would be the sambar. And the third course would be a rasam, and the last thing to be poured on the rice would be yogurt, like it would be like chas, buttermilk. So all these things, if you kind of time it right, you should be able to divide your rice into 4 small hills and then have one of those preparations poured onto each of the hills. And trust me, this is like a foolproof technique. That is the only way you can kind of make sure that you get to taste everything a little by little, but also like you don't get weighed down by the preparations.
Absolutely. And you have to be eating everything. You cannot not eat everything.
Yeah, because if you miss even one, the sadhya feels kind of incomplete. So
You basically be prepared to just sit and happily gorge.
oh yes, and all my friends who come to my sadhya normally they skip the breakfast in preparation.
I can see why. I've had one very, very common consensus from various friends after a sadhya. When you speak with them, I feel like an anaconda. That is big. That is like that from not just one. 3 or 4 of my friends have always said that they feel like an anaconda after it.
Yeah, that's exactly how one would feel like.
So everybody is talking about eating and everybody is talking about feeling stuffed and full and anaconda-like and everything, and the meal is not yet over, Nisha. What else is there?
So the anaconda bit is usually caused by the payasams and the desserts, Payasam is the star of the show in this, and a lot, like it is the major contributor to the anaconda feeling. Everybody's focusing on all this, the sambar, the paripa, and all the accompaniments that's along, and then all these colorful looking veggies on leaf, and trying to match it. And somehow they finish it, and then they suddenly realize, oh, we are not yet done with the dessert. And that's where the payasam comes in.
Can't even say no, because then your meal is not complete. How can you say no?
Oh, no. And nobody should be saying no to payasam. I mean, even if you have sugar issues, I would say a little bit of a taste. If you haven't had some payasam, the richest relatives of kheer. It's the payasam is kind of like a very rich, because they use ghee, and then there is the rich coconut milk, and not just one layer of coconut milk. It has to be like when you squeeze down the coconut, the first
milk, yes,
extraction,
yes.
So there are all these different, and the payasam uses like the first, second, and third extraction. It's called first milk, second milk, and third milk. So that is the extractions that you get from coconut. And so you kind of have to use all these 3 levels of coconut milk in the cooking. So the first part is cooked down with the thinnest. And then there are also thickeners. Some people like to add sabudana or sago, and some people also like add mashed bananas into the mix. So based on which kheer is being made, so many good, yummy ingredients go into the mix that this thing cannot help but be heavy, One, you don't need to have like a whole bunch of it to feel heavy. Like a couple spoonfuls will do the trick. But made right, I think it will be just the right amount of sweet and the right amount of creaminess. It's like a dessert to die for, die for. It's amazing.
Yeah, so it's coconut milk and jaggery.
Yes, the traditional. See, there are like a couple of payasams in Kerala. Like I think the more number of payasams in a sadhya making an appearance directly is relative to how much wealth the host has.
Right. Yeah, I suppose so. But I've also heard of a dal payasam, the moong dal or something. Also, they make a payasam.
Yes, actually, there is also a chana dal payasam, and then there is also a moong dal payasam.
Okay.
So the chana dal that we make is kind of initially roasted in ghee and then kind of like cooked, slow cooked, get the right consistency, and where it is like, just the right amount of creaminess and it still holds its shape.
Yeah.
So making the kheer is not kind of like making the payasam is not exactly like a easy task.
Right.
People like in my family, like my dad, take my dad for instance, he takes the payasam making so seriously that he starts preparing like early in the morning, and he doesn't like to cook on the gas stove. He will have his own stove set up somewhere, and then he will be like melting the jaggery, and he starts like at 7 in the morning, and the cooking goes around until 12 in the noon.
Amazing. See, but then just a spoonful of that and there goes the anaconda.
Oh, there is. That's like the actual anaconda maker. And Payal, did you also know that there are like you get this rice pasta. The traditional Onam payasam is Ada Pradhaman. Ada Pradhaman. Now the Ada means, Pradhaman means payasam, but Ada means there is this fine rice pasta that they make in Kerala. Now, I don't know, I haven't seen it in any other part of India.
I don't know
in
anything
my
of it.
Yeah, this is like a rice flour pasta that they make. They kind of thinly layer it on a banana leaf and then they let it dry in the sun. And then they break it up into bits like irregular squares. And then that is what they add in the payasam. So that is entirely different dish. And an Adapradaman is like they call the king of all payasams.
I can imagine because it sounds so distinctly, belonging to this particular region. But like you say, I've never heard of this ever.
Oh, so I think now you can find the ada, the pasta, the rice pasta almost everywhere in all the stores right before Onam. But I think my dad comes from the old school where like they used to have the ada made custom for their home by someone who used to make these things beforehand, and there would be like you had to place an order with them to get that, and they would be ordered by weight, and these would be coming home, and that would be one of the main payasams. And I think my dad's family usually had like one or two kinds of payasams. One would be the heavy adapradaman, and then the other would be the milk based, the palada. Palada would be the same kind of rice pasta in them, but it would be a milk-based one. So it would be lighter, more like a vermicelli, the kheer, the semia kheer.
Right.
Yeah. So that would be the difference, and that brings me to some of my observations about how people eat their payasam. Now there are a lot of different guests that used to come to my dad's place for tasting the payasam. So there would be people who would request a bowl and a spoon to have their payasam. And they would be just the request granted, and then no attention would be given to them anymore. But then there would be this the religious payasam worshippers who would actually get the payasam on a banana leaf. Now trying to eat this thick payasam from a banana leaf is hard because you have to use your hand to get it somehow to your mouth without dripping it all over your clothes.
Like you said, those are the true worshippers.
Yes, those are the true worshippers, the devotees of payasam. So back in our part of Kerala, which is I come from Trivandrum. So back in our side, we would have a peculiar way of eating the payasam. So everybody would save an extra papadam from the main Sadhya. And then there would be these tiny small, the small bananas that you used to get.
Yes.
And they would, so those bananas would be mashed into the payasam and a papadam crumbled on top. Now this creates a very complex flavor profile, which has a little bit of salt, and then there is the light sweetness and the richness of the banana, which makes the payasam a little less runny, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And completely.
The entire mixture would be blended in by hand, and then it would be easier to scoop. And then people would eat up those pies, that entire layer of that payasam puddle in there within minutes, and then they would be ready for the next round of the the milk based payasam. Now that they would do the same procedure for that too, and this was very, very fascinating to me because that's how I learned how to eat payasam using hands.
Amazing. I've never heard this. This is really too good. It's so funny to think of look at the measures that one goes to ensure that you've done it right.
Yes, and this is you might be able to see this in sadhyas in weddings too, because if you go to a typical Kerala wedding, they would have these big grand sadhyas with 2 or 3 rounds of payasams making, and in weddings usually the payasam, the pradhaman would always be served with a banana and a papadam on the side. And the white one, now they decided that the white one should be enjoyed on its own or with a small piece of puran poli. So that's another combination. So the white payasam is almost always enjoyed with a piece of puran poli. So the puran poli that we normally see in the northern parts of India is purely, I think, made from whole wheat. But the ones that we get in Kerala is usually the maida based one. So it is, and it's smaller, it's more perfectly round, and it's much, much lighter and very thin. So this one is used purely for the purpose of being mashed into this milk payasam.
To make it more eatable.
It's like one of the another classic combinations of the South. Just like how we have gajar ka halwa and vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
So this is modern. I don't even know when, because this system was there when I was a kid. So I don't even know like when this started, but 40 years ago this thing was there, still there.
But what do you do? Do you do this whole thing at home, back in Seattle?
Oh my god. No, not really. See, for our American home with 2 kids who have absolutely no idea about what goes into Indian cooking, I am the only cook. And I am the only one who is like, dead set on teaching my kids the tradition and the culture and everything. So I have learned to pick my battles, and I decided, okay, it will be the basic stuff, not the fancy stuff, unless somebody is there to help me out, or maybe order from out. Now, I am very much against having food from outside, inside in my home when I am cooking a complete meal. So it's usually I take the easier way out and I with the basics. So for me, it will always be one payasam for the Sadhya, that is Adapradhaman. And if I'm having like a lot of people around, I might sometimes give in and have another payasam, but definitely not the poli and the payasam combination.
Yes,
no. Too much of work.
Yes, absolutely it is. And when you have to do all the cutting, chopping, cleaning, serving and then cleaning again, I mean, that's a lot of work.
Oh, I hear you. And see, I saw it as a lot of work when I was a new bride, when you are in that stage where you want to make a good impression on your husband's side of the family and everything. So I kind of went out of my comfort zone to kind of make everything presentable and kind of have everything that they wanted. So I did a lot of those work. But I think once I had my kids, the cooking process became more mindful.
You get all your vegetables the traditional vegetables, if you have to go into your markets over there and buy things, do you find all your ingredients?
Yes. Actually, we live in a place where usually we get almost everything because there are Chinese markets around. Seattle, there is a very high concentration of Asians, and that kind of is really helpful because typical American vegetables are not what is used for Onam, right? You need to have like all these tropical vegetables and roots that normally is common in Asia. So Asian markets help a lot. So I normally, on any given day, I'm a strict locavore who kind of buys all the local vegetables and everything. But come Onam, I am this immigrant mom who just wants her kids to know about their roots, and I just let myself buy all these imported veggies that have come from Asia.
Yeah, fair enough. And then you run your magic, because I know how much of an awesome cook you are and all the wonderful things that come out of Mama's melting pot.
Oh, you're very kind. Thank you, Payal. For me, cooking has always been my, my stress release. So I really enjoy cooking. So I kind of have fun doing it. So be it the chopping, or be it the grinding of the spices, or be it going and actually shopping for those vegetables. This is everything I enjoy. I enjoy the whole process.
It's very cathartic, strangely. I agree with you on that, because I'm like that as well. When I'm having a rushed day and in my head, I need to sort of, center myself. That's what I do.
See,
I go into the kitchen. And I want nobody around there. I tell them to just leave me alone and let me do my thing. And by the time I've finished doing whatever I was doing, I'm back to being myself again.
Oh, see, I completely get that, because for me also, for me, the complexity of the dish, it depends on how much of a stressful day I had. So 2 hours of cooking up a biryani, my family knows, okay, mom really had something bad.
Yes, she's sorting something out in her head.
Yes. Just going through the motions of preparing all this, going through the steps mechanically, but yet
and it's so beautiful. I think it's so. There's so much catharsis, and there's so much wonder in this whole thing of creation and how things turn out. However you're feeling, and I think that's the beauty of the whole thing.
That's true. So over the years, coming back to Sadhya's, I have learned to enjoy the process of it, the chopping and keeping them aside and kind of coming up. And yes, while we live in a place where we kind of get everything, there have also been days where I have been like truly like disappointed by the lack of a certain ingredient. For example, like 2 years ago, we have a small circle of friends who regularly get together to celebrate Onam. And you have heard me like go on and on about the banana leaf and how important it is. Imagine this one time we went to the store and we couldn't find any banana leaf. Trying to imagine an Onam without banana leaves was like too difficult. I tried everything. We even tried like getting frozen banana leaves and trying to cut them into circles, because the frozen banana leaves are all like cut up already. So you cannot use them as a whole leaf. So I tried cutting them into circles and putting them inside thalis and trying to make it like give it that Udupi kind of look, but no, nothing worked.
So sad.
Yeah, so then we had to settle in for like steel thali style Onam.
Right.
But yes, it was not Onam that I'm proud of, but then it was still fun. Thanks to the people who made it.
It was still making do. Yeah. I mean, it was making do with what was available. Somebody would have teleported some banana leaves to you if that were possible.
Oh, I wish. How wonderful would that be?
Oh, what a wonderful Sadhya and what wonderful experiences, Nisha. These have been so completely informational and extremely entertaining.
Oh, you got me talking about food, girl, so I cannot stop.
Completely. No, I'm like that as well. But we'll come to your recipe, the wonderful sweet banana chips, was it, that you were going to share with us?
Yes. So this recipe too comes from one of the times when I couldn't find the actual thing in the stores, and I realized, oh my gosh, I need to have these things, because without them I have never celebrated Onam. Right. And this happened like last year when we were having supply issues in the US, and none of the stores carried them. And I went to the internet and kind of like saw that how easy was it to make them, and I said, okay, what do I have to lose? I just need to try this one time. And I tried them and they came out so well. Oh my gosh, anybody who hasn't even tried making them, I recommend this recipe to everybody. So this recipe, so it is called in different places it's called by different names, but we call them Ethakkaya Upperi. Ethakkaya is the plantains. And Upperi means fried plantain. But they are not typically fried. They are actually fried and they are rolled around in a mixture of jaggery. So, and they kind of turn hard and brittle. And they are kind of very crunchy, and their distinct flavor comes from a sprinkling of cumin, roasted cumin powder, and the dry ginger powder. And they are excellent snacks. So if you make them, do make them in big portions, because they won't last until Onam if you make them too early.
So so there are different kinds of plantains also that are available in Kerala. Are these the long raw ones, or what are these like?
Yeah, these are the
ones
long
that you use for the banana chips, your regular banana
chips? That's right. So those have more starch in them, and they make excellent fried snacks. So that would be the best ones. Whereas the other ones, the raw plantains, the other kind of the shorter varieties might not be so good for them. So do you want me to tell you how to kind of make them?
Yes, you can. Why not?
Oh,
I have the recipe, the specifics I'm going to give them anyway with your recipe, but you can walk us through the whole thing.
Okay, so you start by kind of peeling these plantains, which are like not too ripe. They are just barely ripe. So you have to get them because they have to be really firm so that you can cook them. And if they are too ripe, they might get kind of like splatter in the oil. So you do need some enough coconut oil to deep fry them. So you have to take these plantains and then you have to peel them and then cut them in half, and then you make them like into bite-sized chunks, which can be like kind of resembling like half moons. and not too thin, definitely not too thin. So each plantain can be cut into somewhat, say, 12 to 14 pieces maybe.
Right.
And that's how you chop them. And you will probably need, I am giving you a recipe for a smaller portion, so that if somebody wants to try it out in a small portion, they can. But by all means, feel free to make them double or triple.
Which eventually everyone will.
And then you will need half a cup of jaggery, and you'll be needing water and coconut oil, and then all these small the 2 spice powders that I mentioned. And so after cutting these plantains, you just deep fry them, and deep fry them until they kind of like, the bubbles stop coming, which means almost you got all the moisture out. And make sure you don't fry them in very high heat, otherwise they might get brown from the outside and the insides might still retain some moisture. So try to cook them in a low medium heat. And once they are fried, you need to take them out and let them cool down a bit. And meanwhile, you can just melt in a see here I have tried using a non-stick one, but you can also, I would say much better would be a thick heavy bottomed kadai for melting the jaggery. And go with the traditional kadai, and then you can this will come out really good. So melt the jaggery and keep stirring it until you kind of get a nice thick syrupy texture. And if you can see that it's kind of getting really nice and thick, you can add the fried pieces into this, the fried plantain pieces, and then you can keep stirring in low heat. And soon these pieces will be coated completely in the jaggery mix. And you can kind of once they all start kind of clumping together, you can stop, and you can sprinkle the about half a teaspoon of cumin powder and half a teaspoon of dry ginger powder. And some people I have also seen add a little bit of 2 pinches of black pepper powder to give it a extra aroma. And which, if you want to do it, you can do it, or if you want to keep it completely the traditional way, you can just omit the black pepper, and maybe add 1 pinch of salt to the mix, so that you can kind of have that tiny...
the salt gives it a little edge. Yes.
It gives a very beautiful balance. So I normally add a teeny tiny bit of salt to my upperis. And now you stir them all well and switch off the heat and transfer them to a plate. Now the plate doesn't have to be greased or anything. You just dump them there, and then make sure. And then just with a spatula or whatever you are stirring it, you can just make sure they are in a single layer and they are not sticking too much to each other. Even if they stick, you can separate them later. So let them cool down completely, and that's it. Once they are completely cooled down, you can just break them apart into different pieces, and then you can just store them in an airtight container, and that's it.
Amazing.
It's as simple as that. Oh, it is delicious. Oh, trust me, Payal, these things are what kind of gives me permanent weight,
Doesn't matter. It gives all of us. But then this is all soul food. You can't help it. It's all soul food. Once in a way, you have to do this.
That's so true. So if you make a sadhya, I personally feel it doesn't just feed your fill up your tummy. It just feeds your mind and your soul too. It's a complete meal.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what has happened. I mean, I've made a trip back to Kerala with you, and I've seen young Nisha on the swing, and then curious Nisha, then grown up Nisha, and everything. And it's been such a wonderful journey going back home with you. And please wish your father and tell him that I've heard so much about his payasam now. What can I say? Next time I'm in Bombay.
Oh yes, you are most likely. You are very, very welcome. He would be so happy.
Thank you so much for the Onam journey, and I wish all our listeners, a very, very blessed and a happy Onam. And to all of you, Nisha, I will of course keep up with you and find out what you found and what you didn't this time around in any case. So have fun and have a wonderful, wonderful celebration from all of us.
Thank you, Payal. Thank you for having me, and I really, really enjoyed this chat with you, like always.
We're going to hope that everyone else is going to listen to it and walk down memory lane with you and I.
Oh my gosh, yes. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to blab my head off.
Absolutely. ये आपने सुना रसोई के रहस्य पे इतना दिलचस्प जो हमारी कॉन्वर्सेशन थी ओनम के बारे में निशा के साथ. आप भी जरूर सुनिएगा एंड एंजॉय योरसेल्फ. त्योहार मनाइए, सद्या खाइए एंड शेयर इन द सेलिब्रेशन ऑफ ओनम. अगला त्योहार आने तक इंतजार कीजिए और हमसे जुड़े रहिए रसोई के रहस्य पर. नमस्कार.